In this episode of Matter of Time, Eleanor Picciotto is officially on fire.
That's because of you guys.
It ain't just the flaming red locks. This is a fiery one. We talk about what the big brands can do that the small brands can't, and what the small brands do that has the big brands shaking in their boots. You'll need to tune into this one. I don't know if we get anywhere, but we get somewhere.
Yep, the weather's still good in London.
Pretty little thing, let me light your count, cause mama, I'm sure hard to hell and I yes around.
Welcome back to A Matter of Time. I'm here with my co-hosts Christian and Ellie, and we have a zinger for you today, people. But I've got two zingers on either side of me. How you doing, guys?
Oh, pretty good,
Great.
pretty good.
Beautiful weather in London.
Oh,
Christian discovered what a line bike is after discovering what a matcha tea was. I guess there's a learning curve for everything every day.
absolutely. Look at London in the sunshine. You can't see people crying, only in the rain. Oh, it's the other way around, right?
London is beautiful right now. It's great to have you back. And we are talking today about a topic that is just so persistent because it does not go away, which is this endless development of micro brands. What's happened here is that initially we had the Swiss watch industry in this ivory tower. So much of what they were doing was untouchable. It was very much price point orientated. And then over time, we're seeing more and more innovations being brought to micro brands that are bringing the prices down of things that previously were owned by brands. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, microbrands are definitely interesting. And I personally appreciate the coming to market. Of course, there's a price point. The price point is sexy to my wallet, and I seem to be tempted a lot. Whereas when we have the larger brands, it's a bigger game, if you like. There's a long press release. There's probably a very luxurious trip to something, the Maldives or something like, in order
That's
to.
That's because you're a famous journalist.
No, it's not that. It's been like that all the time. You have to fly first class. There will be a car that picks you up. Of course, this is for the journalists only, but we need to be seduced in order to write a great story about XYZ product. Whereas the micro brands, they seem to just come up with the product and have to convince us otherwise. No expensive press trips. No seducing us.
They have to lead from actual value as opposed to building all these marketing costs.
They have to give you this and say, this is so cool. And we will be like, no, it's not. Oh, yeah, it is. Right? So I think the journey from the micro brand product compared to the big brand product is shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Helena?
I think you're absolutely right to some extent because it is true that in the way the communication works versus big brand versus smaller brand is very different for obvious reason. Most of the small brands don't have marketing and communication budget. So they put everything in R&D, they put everything in the pieces into the actual production of being able to deliver watches ASAP, which usually takes a couple of months, if not years. And the dynamic is very different because the commercial standpoint that are at stakes are also very different. But that's why it's really hard to compare one to the other. Big brands have structures, have boutiques, have markets, have teams in different countries, have regions that are divided by budgets, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to explain how companies work, but that's how they do. Versus smaller brand, they basically bring the watches in their pocket, tour the world in order to show what the watch looks like. And that's what people are expecting because at the end of the day, all you want to do, whether you're invited to a press trip or not, you just want to see the watch. I never speak about a watch that I never hold in my hand, that I've never had in my hands, just because a beautiful press release, amazingly written with stunning images, will never beat the watch that you have in your hands, just because the color will be different, the feel will be different, the weight will be different. And that's when you can really measure the impact of what does a small brand, independent brand brings versus a big brand. Big brand brings the name, the stability, the confidence, the blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
A smaller brand, you're not expecting as much. You're not looking at the packaging. You don't really care about the press release. You want to see the product.
Yeah.
How much effort, how much detail did they put into it, considering that they have no budget, considering they don't have a lot of money, and what they can achieve And that's when it gets interesting, is like that brand with that much money at that price point can do better than this, and this with much higher budget. And it's terrible because you end up comparing what's not comparable.
Sure.
But it's just human nature. You just do this because like, whoa, that's cool. Or they're lacking a little bit of this. So you kind of give the excuse, well, it's because they don't have enough time. They don't have the right supplier. They don't have this. Versus if you were to do this with like a big brand, you would not let this go. It would be like lethal punishment immediately. No, but it's true.
Yeah, but having that discussion, because we have country managers of every big brand.
Yeah.
I remember I went to see, I'm not going to say the brand, but one of the larger brands during Watches and Wonders, all of a sudden, like the phones just came up and go like, okay, here comes a celebrity. So there was a manager of said brand next to me, and I whispered to him when this beautiful Asian woman walked by and the cameras were just like, I was like, oh, here walks 1 million Swiss francs. So a lot of money is being put into the big brands, and our perception of the big brands right away, oh, this is luxurious. So the demand that we have towards the micro brands is actually larger, because we expect a lot from them, because their journey from the product to the communication to us and the end consumers is a lot shorter. And it didn't cost 1 million Swiss franc to times 15, depending on what country the movie star is from.
And this is where
Sorry,
you
lost my
come
voice
into
there.
the equation. We're asking you this question because this watch by Christopher Ward, the Christopher Ward Loco, has had a lot of plaudits heaped on it since it was launched. As in, it's a game changer, it's shaking the foundations of the big box brands. So I ask you early in this episode, this is the same price as a Tudor. What do you choose? What are the benefits of both a big box brand versus a brand that brings an open balance, a 6-day power reserve, an escape wheel on the dial, this high horology type of configuration of the dial, an open dial? Do you find yourself more gravitating to the value that is being packed into this watch that doesn't have a marketing budget, that doesn't have a retailer margin built in, that doesn't have Maldives press trips? Does this make you think, this is a steal? Finally, I can get access to a watch that has all of the costs stripped out of it, and I'm just paying for the product. Christian, you asked me, is this, what movement is this? Who's behind this movement? This is, according to Christopher Ward's materials, I know the brand pretty well. I was part of the documentary that launched this. This is developed in-house by Christopher Ward. They bought a movement manufacturer and a movement design company in Switzerland, in Biel, called Synergy Horology. They've done this properly. And they deliver this watch that, again, to the untrained eye, to people that look at this, think, okay, what else? What other open balance watches can I think of? They're all in really, really high price points. So this is the question. Do we feel ourselves entering an era of just totally disruptive new value in watches? Or do we still, in that clincher of, well, do I buy this or do I buy a Black Bay 58? Where are we sitting? Because it's a new opportunity to access so many new high horology points.
Yeah, we're sitting on the answers.
Tell me the answer, man.
Eleanor, come on.
Okay.
Punch us out.
On an intellectual standpoint, I agree with you. Christopher Ward ticks the boxes. Now, if you ask me, would I buy this watch because it's that much money, it's well made, it's developed, is blah, 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 everything you just said, it doesn't trigger a single emotion to me. Because when I look at the watch, the bracelet is, I've seen this bracelet before. When I look at the bridges, it kind of reminds me of like a GP Laureato in the middle. Then, yes, there's like an element of MB&F. But earlier you said that this could be like a small MB&F version. It is.
I was talking about the LM1. Like in our pre-talk for the show, we talked about the fact that these bridges are reminiscent of a Chapek, the new tourbillon, the open balance is reminiscent of the LM1. And again, these things aren't giving you exactly the same, but they're giving you access to that feel.
But that's the thing. You're feeding me exactly with what I don't want to hear. Because you're telling me that in this recipe, there's a little bit of him, a little bit of her, a little bit of him, and then becomes the watch. And I'm like, okay, so this guy, but again, I'm not insulting Christopher Ward, and we haven't met, and please, I'm a nice person, I promise.
Now we're into the show.
What I'm saying is,
Please contact my lawyers
like,
for further
if
comment.
you come up with something new and different, be new and different. That's all I'm saying. And so, yes, it's...
So you don't think there's actual new design language happening here?
A little bit.
Step style.
But again, you have an emotion with this watch. I don't. And
No,
to answer your
I'm
earlier
just presenting
question,
it. I'm just addressing the fact that reputable journalists are considering this a properly disruptive watch.
of course. And
This is not just how I feel
who
about it.
am I to go against them? Then it's a personal standpoint where, okay, you asked me earlier, for that price, would you go with a Tudor or with this one? I would go with a Tudor.
Okay.
For the exact same budget, would you go for a Tudor or an Oris? I would go with an Oris. But again, it's me. Earlier, Marcus said I would never buy an Oris. I would go with a Tudor. Then it goes back to personal standpoint. What attracts you? What kind of emotion does a watch trigger you? Because at the end of the day, everybody knows nobody needs a watch. We've got a cell phone in our pocket. If you really want the time, you can get it anywhere, anytime. So if you have to spend money, and 3,500 is a lot of money for a lot of people, I might spend them on a piece of jewelry. If you ask me how to choose, then I would go with a piece of jewelry. But it's for this watch. Then for another one, it might be different. This one, for example, which I literally discovered this morning, the Eco Neutral, I've never seen it. I had never heard of it. I'm more intrigued. I'm more intrigued because of the shape, because of the detail, because
Where's
of
that
the weight,
cloth?
because of the finishing, where it's like a sandblasted finishing. And I know nothing about this watch, but immediately I don't know the price. I know nothing
Yeah.
about it, but I would just like change the strap because I don't like black straps. But that's, again, personal. I find it has more edge. I haven't seen it anywhere. There's like in the way, like there's no lugs, but you can see like the ending part of like the line of this like square. It could be a tank Cartier inspired. That's what everybody could say. Yes, but no, because the tank.
You feel they've brought
isn't-
enough
Yes.
original design language to this. And I think because where we can, and I want to get everyone's measure on this, because my standpoint is I'm wearing, and let's do a wrist check.
It has been a while.
It has been a while.
I thought you forgot, boss man.
Didn't forget. Let's do a wrist check. I'm wearing this Hublot Mecha 1042 in King Gold on purpose because there are some days when I just want that big brand power. I don't feel that I'm 100% the person I need to be that day. I'm 85. That I'm not going to get a 15% boost from wearing a brand that's 5 years old. I need to wear a brand that has hit the market like Hublot has 25 years ago with the Big Bang. I need to hit the market with a Tudor that was the shield to protect the crown 100 years ago. You know, big brand power is something that it's like a little shot in the arm. It's like an extra shot of coffee. So there are days when I need to wear a big brand watch, and there are other days where I'm like, I feel a
Do you
bitch.
feel more powerful when you're lifting your weight at the gym?
Sometimes it gives you that extra little 5%. I do sometimes wear a watch to the gym when I'm tired and I can't get myself.
No days off.
Hashtag no days off. Yep. Follow along.
You on fire today,
No,
dog.
I'm watching out. I'm in the firing line. No, my point is just that there is no definitive answer. I side only with value and new brands. My proposition to you both, and I want to hear where you stand on that Tudor versus Ward equation.
Hang on. What are you wearing, Eleanor?
So I am.
What a mess this episode is.
I love it. Fucking love it. Go it.
So
Tell
I am
us.
wearing a vintage Patek Philippe Ellipse from 1974, if I've read the paper correctly. It has the original blue alligator strap with the buckle that is still an ellipse shape, reminiscent of the case.
Oh,
I've
boy.
got the
That's
blue
deep.
dial, like Sunray blue dial, yellow gold, mechanical movement with manual winding.
Manual wind, yeah.
With a very, very thin crown, very delicate, which when you wind it, you have to be very smooth. And I'm just in love with this watch because as we have covered this earlier, it is a very sentimental watch to me.
Yes. That's a
Gonna
gorgeous
hide
piece.
it back.
Yeah.
Christian,
Yes. So
What are you wearing?
What are you wearing?
It's funny to listen to Andrew talk about his Hublot, because he's like big power watch. So it's like it sounds like your Hublot is a very powerful watch, my dear. So I'm going into the softer lines of my Le Rotveillier Sport Auto in titanium.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then we're gonna have the blue precious stones next to the blue dial. It's a gorgeous watch, and it's not only candy to the eye, it's so feather light on the wrist, and I love it.
Wow. Okay. I'm sort of getting visuals with that somehow.
Okay.
So we're back to the proposition that there are things that big brands can give you that small brands can't. And there's value and amazing bang for buck that small brands can give you that big brands can't. And where do we sit? Christian, you have yet to answer that question of what do you think this is? Well, this is what consumers now face. Like watch buyers face this choice between a time-only big brand watch, a Breitling, a Tudor, even an Omega, or this incredible horological offer, which ticks a lot of the watch expert boxes at the same price. Like, what do you see this as a genuine threat, or is this won't even touch the sides of the big brand offer?
I don't really want to. I wouldn't communicate to the watch experts, if you like. This to me would not be my first choice. Let's say I was wearing an Apple Watch, a smartwatch, and I had 3,500 to spend on a mechanical watch. I wouldn't go for this. I would go straight for the Tudor. Tudor, I know about. I've seen cool people wear it. They're into these different kind of sports. Oh, damn it! They even have French military wearing it since the 50s. There's a good DNA. There's a good pedigree to the brand. This is brand new.
David Beckham picks up his carrots in his garden with it.
Good man, David Beckham.
But see, that's a lot of money that Tudor spent to get you to notice that.
No. That's not the thing.
That's not spent on the watch.
I mentioned pre-talks that this reminds me of the first time I ever saw 7 Friday.
Yes.
I saw it on the wrist of a gentleman in a fur coat coming out of a super expensive car. So my perception was 7 Friday is a super expensive watch. So I was attracted to it also because the design of the watch was distinctly different from a Tudor Black Bay 58, if you like.
Yeah.
That was before it was introduced. So I saw it on the wrist of a fellow journalist in Basel, and he said, it's 900 euros. I'm like, well, the lust for the watch fell. But my curiosity grew.
And what's brilliant about that comparison is that both the 7 Friday and the Ward, actually, their complication is a visual complication. There's actually nothing complicated about it.
Not at all.
That 7 Friday looked so complicated because it was sort of an industrialized open work. And it actually wasn't a functional skeletonized dial. A lot of it was just decorative.
Yes.
It was kind of a fraudulent watch in that, it sold the idea of a complicated mechanical watch, and yet it was a really cheap-a-bosh movement with no finishing. This is different. This again is a visual complication, but it doesn't do anything different to a time-only watch. So they're kind of similar in that way as well, as in they're giving a consumer who may not know everything about watches the sense that they have a super mechanical watch on their wrist. And it's really putting that mechanical mechanism out there.
But you're also making a point, and that's something we haven't talked about yet, is we talked about the watch component and the value of the watch. But one thing that smaller brands do bring, 100% of them, and big brands for the most part don't, is the proximity of the watchmaker, the brand who created the brand,
the personal
the person
aspect.
who made the watch, who thought about the watch, who conceptualized the watch. And we've said it, and it's true that most of these guys are attainable. If you want to speak to Max Buser, you might encounter 1 or 2 steps in the way before you reach to him. But you can, and you will. You want to speak to Benoît Mentiens, the founder of Ressence, to explain you how the watch works? You're like 5 seconds away. You want to meet Furlan or Mary? You can. And I think it's also the beauty of you see a watch on a piece of paper in a press release, you spot it on the wrist of someone, you're being targeted on Instagram, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. For example, Gaga Laboratorio, the brand that Moco Poletta just took over as the artistic director. it's quite an interesting watch when you look at it on Instagram, and people have had a lot of interest. Then when you hold the watch in your hand, you just want to buy it immediately if you kind of like the design. And what's interesting is when you have the whole story of Mo telling it, and the founder of the brand, who actually has owned a watch brand, which is Laboratory Milano or Gaga Milano, I think. The brand has been around for decades. Nobody has heard of it in our sphere because it was just like affordable watches. You hear the story of how they want to change the things they wanted to change, how they wanted the design to evolve. And you just fall in love with the story in addition to the watch. And if you are not sensitized by a design drawing a photo on Instagram, if you are aware of it, the minute you meet the founder or the watchmaker, then you understand.
A connection is formed.
The accessible, I think, is super important.
Completely shift the thing versus we were talking about Rolex. If you start meeting a lot of people at Rolex, it might work the other way around because it's just the way they work. It's such a big corporation that it's normal that they're not that attainable because then you cannot control what's coming out.
No, they're close like an oyster.
But that's also part of the plan for Rolex,
of course.
Right? Because Rolex wants to be dehumanized and just a symbol of power, a symbol of success. But it's also the more you put people into it, individuals, the more fallible the brand is as well. And we see this with ambassadors. This is Rolex's only kind of ongoing issue is that you have let's just say, Alexander Zverev, not a perfect human being. And a Rolex ambassador makes a personal mistake in his life or has some scandal around his name, is quickly dropped from the brand. This is the one part of Rolex's brand world where they are human, and that's their most problematic part. Yeah. Because the rest of the brand is as you said, perfection. But they're both. I don't seek to have that Mo Coppolietta or that Richard Benz or Max Busser to get me through a gym session because that's, again, it's very human. It's a nice human connection, and this is why I think you can have both. But Christian, what do you think is happening? Like you've worked for Max Busser, so maybe we could start there. But what do you think is happening in the boardroom at MB&F when a Loco arrives on the table and they sit around going, okay, cool. Are we worried by this at all? Do you think that this erodes our brand offer to have something that is visually, let's just say, approximating or approximately like one of our watches? Do you think this is going to erode our offer? What do you think Max would say?
I don't think he'd care. I think I've listened to him on many interviews where he says that first, there's room for everybody. Second, you think it has some features at MB&F. I don't see it at all.
It simply has an open balance, same as an LM1, which again, to an untrained eye, you go, oh, they're approximatable.
Yeah, but that's when people compare a Royal Oak to a Big Bang.
Approximatable, yeah. Yep, fair. And I think that comparison is no mistake, by the way.
But you know what? I'm just going to make another comparison outside of the industry is when lab-grown arrived on the market, in the jewelry market, and everybody was like, oh my God, lab-growns are going to destroy the mine diamond industry. Well, the first lab-grown diamond was created in 1953. But fast forward in 2025, and we have never heard as much as lab-grown diamonds in recent years. If you speak to most of the mine diamond, like natural diamond dealers, miner brands, they say it's not going to do anything to us. It's just going to open up a new spectrum of client who will be interested in diamonds because they thought they couldn't afford it. So it will be one.
It's a gateway.
And then the second one, another range of people will think, well, it's a fake version, even though it's not, but I will stick with the mine diamond. And some, like me, will buy both because I can use lab grown for this and I like to use mine diamond for that. And I think it's the very same thing. Somebody who owns an MB&F, but he or she is afraid of wearing it in a city like London because now there's a high rate crime and people know about MB&F because it's the example you're talking about. Maybe he will buy a Christopher Ward as the travel watch or as the watch to go work out in his gym crossing like his neighborhood in London. Or maybe he will not be interested at all because he doesn't like the watch. So I think it's really hard to compare what's not comparable. And again, I'm sorry to repeat myself, but it comes down to emotion. if you have an emotion, like an emotional drive to the watch, you can own 55 MB&F. If you like this watch, then you will. The same way that you can own every single Patek reference, but you can own a Furlan Mary at 500 pounds, still do the trick, and you have the same pleasure of wearing one versus the other.
I totally agree. It's all about emotions.
Thank you.
How do you... No, I don't like that we all agree around the table because the conversations are fun when we don't agree. But there's some different... emotion drives most products in the world. How do you explain attraction? How do you explain how were you attracted to Fiona? How were you attracted to your husband-to-be? How was I attracted to Lisbeth? You know, it's
So it's Loic, because you put names, but he has a name.
I'm sorry about that.
That did sound like unnamed.
No, but the thing
boyfriend.
is, I'm not attracted.
Fiance.
I am not attracted to this watch.
But let me ask you.
No. But the thing is also
Because it's not about this watch. It's about this versus your Rolex. What makes you pick this some days and your Rolex other days? And what is the attraction to each?
Yeah, but it's as if you ask him, why did you choose, or if you ask me, why did you choose like this dress over this pair of jeans?
But I
need both.
explained my circumstances with my Hublot. I said today I wanted to feel that extra power. I wanted to feel lifted by a brand that's invested in telling me what kind of person this watch could unlock for me. So there are
no.
differences.
But the thing is, when you ask me why am I not, choosing this from Rolex? I mean, I've been wearing this almost every single day since I got it, and being 55, I've been through a shitload of watches and brands, collected A, B, and C, X, Y, Z. Yet I come back to this one. Well, not come back. The first time I put this on my wrist, I fell in love. The first time I saw this design was in Dubai, I think was 19, when the Tourbillon came out, when the sport line was introduced by Laurent Feuillet. Before that, I didn't know anything about the brand, except when Benjamin Clymer, he bought one. I asked him, what's this? He goes like, well, it's like Patek, only better. Okay, well, now I'm curious. But how do you explain attraction? Also, I want to come back to the accessible, because I think with the micro brands, I think COVID was really good for them, because the larger brands were used to communicating through their retail work, right?
Yeah.
And they were closed down. So the micro brands and the indies, mind you, they were used to talking to the end client,
This is true.
to the customer on WhatsApp. See, Christopher Ward could send me a WhatsApp call like, hey, Christian, I just launched this. This is really cool. Do you like it? I mean, we can have a drink. I'm in London next Wednesday. You want to meet at the Queen and the Horse, and we'll have a pint. And he will do that, right? Isn't that a typical?
Actually, I have to say, if anyone's going to do that, it's Nicholas from Fears, who is just always up for a pint.
Yes, he is.
But Nicholas has absolutely exemplified that personal touch, and he does get around with his watches in a briefcase, but he's building a legend that is starting to, again, this is an example of a watch that has a mother of pearl dial in a cushion case, and it's a really well-made object in the hand. And again, this is bringing a mother of pearl dial to a different price point. And again, we have this option of a new brand with a new story, even though Fears is one of the oldest existing British brands still in production, versus a big brand with less bells and whistles at the same price. So we're always faced with this choice of, and when we look in our watch box as very privileged people with a lot of watches, we can choose between the two.
Our privilege, yes, we do own watches, but our privilege is not to own watches, is to see hundreds and hold in our hands hundreds of watches every year. I think it's the biggest privilege, especially for people who love watches. They just cannot see the watches that sometimes we get to try on or shoot or just have in our hands.
And this is what I think is so interesting about what you said about your feelings about this watch. That makes me just, I guess for a moment, I sit in your chair watching this YouTube show thinking, I've got to check out this Laurent Ferrier. If Christian feels that strongly about it as someone that's had this privilege, that just speaks so loudly about the quality of this watch.
Yeah, but also a living nightmare for those brands, because you were just talking about Fears. For me, for that price, I just want to tell them, and again, they don't know me, I don't know them, so they're probably going to hate me. But for that price, guys, be a little more creative.
Okay.
Why do you use a mother of pearl? Like mother of pearl is basically when brands started to, God, I'm on fire today.
Yes, you are, John. Keep it on.
When brands started thinking about, okay, now women are being interested in wearing watches. What should we do? Well, we're gonna take an
Who says that's for
existing.
women? The last buyer of this was Barney in our store, like a 6 foot
That's
tall
not a
redhead
lady's
guy.
watch. That's not a lady's watch.
And for him, this is a wildly
Okay,
innovative
no,
decision.
it isn't. But a pink mother of pearl. Well, if you show this to a woman will most likely choose this than that.
Okay.
Okay.
I agree on that.
So
Of those two,
what's
I
wrong with
agree.
serving the customer?
No, what I'm saying is that for that price, but that's because I hate mother of pearl. So again, it's
Yeah.
an emotional thing. It's a
It's a
personal thing.
caveat.
But there's nothing like this watch is pretty classic. It's a integrated bracelet. It has a cushion case, but it still has like a pretty round, so you kind of like get the joke. It's pretty simple. Like there's no complication. It's a simple watch. Like you remove fears. It could be not anyone, but it could be some brands. My point is, you want to like stand out for the price. Put a turquoise dial. Change the hour markers. Do something slightly different. It's a little too obvious, simple, and easy. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And when you have a brand that has a different take, that has a different name, that has a different story, just be different.
And that's where this one hits the spot for you?
Yeah.
Now, point out the exact details that take this to a non-generic level. I think I know one of them, but because this really fascinated you.
So it fascinated. Well, first, I love the like matte finishing of like a sandblasted. That I love.
Mhm.
Then what's interesting is when you look at the watch here, you don't really have lugs. It's like one full case as if it was like made of like one solid block of titanium. And then you have the continuity of it. And then you have the details where you have like a polished mirror line right here that you can see on the edge. I always find both in watches and jewelry harsh when you've got like angles and it's sharp. I find it very aggressive, which is a difficult exercise, especially when you do a square case or rectangular case for the matter. But here he managed to just round up. And again, there's no rounds because you've got edges, but it still has this elegance and twist edge where you have like a classic but modern at the same time. I could slap myself for saying this, but it's true.
And you can definitely look at the indices, the way that they're flashing in the monitor there. Like these are
What's the price
super,
of this?
super high polished. This is like £1,500.
It's
And
so good.
it's a elaborate grade hand wound movement. So we do have, I think it's an SW200, but this is a really fantastic example of, and maybe
That I'm
it's hard to remove the subjectivity from this discussion.
Of course,
Because
it's
if I say, oh, you're a micro brand or a big box brand, and then I put a watch that to you is too derivative to have credibility in front of you, of course it's going to be easy to go back to your Oris. But I do think that a brand like Eco Neutra and this Rivanera model is an example of where they've really considered how can we do something different. We're going to take grade 5 titanium and polish it to a mirror. I have never seen grade 5 titanium finished like that. That is a single monoblock case. You're perfectly right. So perhaps this discussion ultimately comes down to not just the watches we have on the table, but the simple question of there are things that small brands can do that big brands can't. They can innovate much quicker. If there's any criticism of Rolex, the biggest of all the big brands, it's that they evolve too slowly. It's just agonizing watching them plod from this dial color in this model now, and now we move titanium over to the professional models, and now it's just like watching an elephant run 100-meter race. It's
but
like,
it's-
oh my god, can we
They've
just
got
get
different
there?
things at stake. Rolex produces 1 million watches a year, so it's a whole cycle. But I guess to end on a good note, and I think we're opening up to what I'm going to say. I'm opening up to another subject, but around all these discussions, there's retailers like where brands are closing down retailers, and we've seen in many of watch forums and magazines, will the job of a retailer end? Truth is, it can't. And you're the living reason in opening the stores like the Time+Tide stores where you have like a selection of independent. It's why my dad, who owns a store where he can tell the story, where you cannot do this in a flagship store of one brand, because the people will tell you the story of the brand. And if you don't have salespeople in a multi-brand retail store who are there to tell you the stories of all these guys and educate you on the matter and open your mind on what's out there,
and put it in your hands, because you would never have looked at this at a rent.
then
Ever.
independence will never compete. There's room for everybody. And it's the role of journalists, it's the role of retailers, it's the role of communication tools to just educate on what's out there and what's the offer. And then you're the one who, on a personal standpoint, with your own emotion and how much you have in your wallet, will decide whether you want to spend that money or not.
British watchmaking.
Mm-hmm.
British watchmaking. This is
Italian.
okay.
Mhm.
So I just realized what I appreciate being in London today is British watchmaking having a great comeback these years.
It is.
That is super appealing.
Yeah.
I must admit that. That basically it's just something I just observed. I didn't think of that before, but I think the conservatism of Rolex is just perfect for the brand. Does things is it super slow in Switzerland? Let's just quote Albert Einstein. When I die one day, I want to die in Switzerland because everything just happens slower there. And it's truth spoken. See, this is progression.
Mhm.
Yet, British watchmaking has a rich history. The pedigree of British watchmaking is rich. But it's not until the most recent years, probably very much post-COVID,
Yeah.
that it comes to life.
Mm.
I believe there was a British watchmaking watch fair 2 years in a row now.
British Watchmakers Day.
Yeah.
Mm.
See, the
QP
pride.
at the time had a good British
This has sort
watchmaker.
of replaced the QP salon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a certain pride,
Mm.
British pride,
Mm.
connected to these to Fears and Christopher Ward,
Mm.
which I applaud. I
Yeah.
think it's great.
So I guess we opened a huge can of worms today, people. And
Hells yeah.
I'm not entirely sure that we took you to a destination, but it is an open discussion and it's an ongoing question. What do the big box brands have up their sleeve that can always trump a small and new brand? And what sort of nimble, creative, innovative things can these tiny brands do that will always shine through as something that is as in an agile way quickly goose-stepped into a cool spot? This is an ongoing discussion, and I'd love to know, does your collection tell the story? So we want to hear your story in the comments below. We've got through a very meaty episode, and it's the fun part again.
Yeah, I mean, not that I didn't enjoy the conversations in our prior episodes, but this was good because the emotions were really triggered.
They definitely were. Ellie was triggered.
Yeah. Oh, she's been on fire all morning.
She's going to need an extinguisher
She was fast
today.
on a line bike.
Now this is the part where we choose a card from the game The Sickness, which is
It's retailed by Time+Tide.
it certainly is. It's a fun game you can play with your horological buddies. Okay, this is great. Okay, we're going to lay them down.
Doesn't happen often, but I
Okay.
need to think.
Well, I am going to lead with this. A time someone else's watch made me feel inferior. Dubai Watch Week 4 years ago, Arnaud Legeret, how do you say his name?
Who?
Arnaud Legeret.
Arnaud Legeret, who is he's been incredibly loyal and consistent with MB&F. He works at MB&F. We were on the dance floor and I'm looking at his watch. Of course we were. And I'm just like, what? And then I'm like, is that a steel Legacy Machine 1 with a blue dial? And he's like, yes, it is. Yes, sir, it is. And I just felt so envious. And it sort of ties it all together. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, I couldn't get one of those if I asked really nicely, could I? And he's just like, you're so good looking. And it didn't soften the blow. That in a very sweet, smiling way, he said, no fucking way. That was the end of that.
Would you have talked to your wife like that to get on dance floor? I mean, that is so geeky. You dance with men and you ask for their watches. How long did you dance all night?
That's
How much alcohol was involved?
Look,
Oh, he
we
dances without alcohol, mind you.
This is true. Ellie, what's your car?
If I could see into the future, I would want to know this watch-related fact. Maybe it's going to come out one day on what happened when they thought about the celebration Rolex. Was somebody internally got some drugs slipped in their drink and then that happened? I want to know the backstory of this watch.
Of the celebration. You think that was the
balloons.
fruitiest? You said, what about the crazy affirmations watch with #blessed instead of the day date? No? Okay. That's the one I want to know about. What drugs were that?
Well, it was the same year,
It was
so it was probably
year.
the same
drugs.
My card is pick a person in the group and guess what brand was their first watch love. I'm going to go with Marcus. I think it was Tudor. Okay.
Yeah.
What do I
Great
want?
episode. Well, look, not everything is that predictable on the show. As you've seen, we'll be back again soon. Team, thank you.
Just a matter of time.
It's only a matter of time.
I like this episode.
We get drawn back
I
in.
really, really do. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time.
Bye.
Pretty little thing living like you count, cause mama, I'm sure hard to hell and I yes around.